I have Democratic strategist Zeke Stokes, who spent years working at GLAAD as a former chief programs officer. Thank you so much for joining us, Zeke.
Thank you for having me, Adrienne. Great to see you.
Yeah, it's lovely to see you too. And things seem to be getting a little bit better out there in terms of all of this nonsense going on with Trump and his refusal to really cede and just leave office. So what are your thoughts on how this is playing out?
You know, I've had so many thoughts over the last 2 weeks, like I guess you and so many Americans. You know, this really is unprecedented, and it's gone from silly and disruptive to really dangerous and quite frankly deadly. We just crossed 250,000 Americans dead from the coronavirus, and yet we've got this administration standing in the way of the incoming Biden-Harris administration when they need to be getting down to serious business to make sure that they can hit the ground running on day one to get this vaccine distributed, to make sure that we've got a plan in place for recovering economically from this pandemic, and of course tackling all the things that were issues in this election, like climate change and systemic racism and criminal justice and all of those things, such big things that we have to do. And right now, Donald Trump and his allies are standing in the way, and it's dangerous, and it is literally killing Americans. You can't overstate it, really.
No, and you're absolutely right about that. We see the numbers come out every day showing COVID-19 being on the rise. And all of essentially this havoc that is coming to fruition, in part because Trump will not get out of the way. And since you focus on just the strategic elements largely of the Democratic platform, what do you think is most important to focus on right now, given the circumstances?
Well, I think part of the big challenge we see President-elect Biden having is having to deal with this intransigent president and administration, and still trying to bring the Americans together, which I think is what people voted for. They wanted a return to some level of normalcy, civility, and a real adult at the White House, and that's what we got. And so he's really having a hard time straddling this fence between fighting the Trump machine and making sure that they have access to everything they need in order to hit the ground running and do the job, and also making sure that we're moving sort of past this petty partisan nonsense and divisiveness that we've seen for the last few years. So he's got a really tall order, but I feel so good about where we are with this incoming administration. They've put together such an amazing transition team, so many great people from all walks of life, all areas of public life in America coming together to tackle the big issues in front of us. So I feel good about where we're headed. It's going to be painful getting there, but one way or the other, Donald Trump is going to leave the White House and hopefully the public stage for good on January 20th, 2021.
Yes, definitely. At noon that day, I will hope that he will be out of the White House and out of our lives, let's hope. But in terms of Biden's transition and the team that he is assembling, you're right, it is a lot more diverse in terms of making sure that people come from all sides, all walks of life, and have representation in an experience working with different members of different parties. And so I think that could help with kind of getting rid of that divisiveness that's there and bringing people together. And so when you go ahead.
Yeah. Oh no, and professionals, scientists, medical professionals giving their best advice to this administration, this new incoming administration. It's going to be a new day. We kind of forgot what it was like to have normal leadership in this country, and we're starting to feel it again, and it feels really great, doesn't it?
Oh no, it absolutely does. But the one thing that doesn't feel all that awesome, just because you're wondering how successful can they be, is this coup attempt that's kind of going on. And that is also kind of being ignored at the same time because there's this thought of, oh, they won't be able to pull it off. And what does it really say to you if the Dems aren't responding to this purported coup that we see Giuliani and Trump really trying to orchestrate?
Well, there's a few things to remember. I think the first is that the vast majority of Americans believe this election is settled and are not giving a lot of credence to the antics that Trump and Giuliani and their allies are trying to pull. That said, we ought to call this out for what it is. It is a coup attempt. In any other country, we would say this is a coup attempt to undermine democracy, undermine the will of the people, and to stay in power at all costs. That's what he's doing. We shouldn't try to sugarcoat that, even though we feel like the outcome will not be successful for him. I think, one of the things Joe Biden said in his news conference yesterday after he met with the governors on the coronavirus pandemic was that they're keeping all options on the table as it relates to how to deal with this. And I think Donald Trump telegraphed to us the day he came down the escalator at Trump Tower 4 years ago who he was. What I think we need to see now is who these Republicans are who are surrounding him. Lindsey Graham, Ted Cruz, Mitch McConnell, who are giving him cover to do this kind of nonsense. And I think history is going to treat those people and the people who stood with this president at this time very, very badly. And they literally have blood on their hands. This is not a time for gamesmanship, one-upsmanship, partisanship. This is a time to come together and do what's right because people are literally dying. We've all seen the video of miles of cars lined up down the streets in cities across this country because people are hungry and they need food. These elected leaders need to get to work. They need to come together with Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and get the job done. Nothing else is acceptable.
No, it's completely and totally unacceptable. And fortunately, it seems we're kind of moving in that direction, which is very nice. And one of those things in particular is just the other day, we heard about the Michigan lawmakers who are going to meet with Trump after trying to possibly maybe change their certification from Biden in Michigan and Wayne County in particular, where Detroit is. And the fortunate thing that came out of that is apparently they have now said that they are not going to kind of overturn their certification decision. So they kind of just, kicked Trump in his teeth and said no, which is great. But kind of what does it signal that you have these Republicans jumping in and out in terms of whether they're going to partner with Trump or not?
It's literally insane, Adrienne. You really just can't put a big enough exclamation point on it. The fact that the president of the United States, the defeated president of the United States, would call these local canvassing board people, and as far as we can tell, try to persuade them to rescind their certification of this election in Michigan, in an attempt to undermine the overall outcome is really just insane, if not criminal. Thankfully, they actually had no legal standing to rescind their certification anyway. So it was sort of an attempted effort with no real place to go behind it. But then inviting these Republican legislators from Michigan to the White House today and then trying to say, oh, they're not going to talk about the election. Well, what are they there to talk about? What is this president trying to do? We know he's abdicated every other area of responsibility, has had virtually no public schedule since election day. Of course, that's what he's talking to them about. That's all he's thinking about. It's all he's tweeting about. And it really is damaging to our democracy, not just here at home, but it sends a really bad signal around the world about how democratic governments work. And we've got to really come together and stand firm against this as progressives, as Democrats, as Americans, and say this is not okay. It never will be okay, not from this president, not from any president.
No, it is completely and totally unacceptable. You're absolutely right about that. And something that I would definitely love to address, in part because it's so important to me and I am just so absolutely bothered by it. And I know you have a lot of experience working at GLAAD. And so we saw as Trans Awareness Week wrapped up, having this decision come out of the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals, which basically said that bans on anti-LGBTQ conversion therapy violates the First Amendment. And what bothered me most about this ruling, other than the fact that it's absolutely disgusting and disturbing, is that both of the judges that were in the 2-1 majority were appointed by Trump. And so the reality is that now we have a judiciary that it's largely inundated with Trump appointees who have this conservative, very narrow-minded outset, and that could control a lot of how this nation goes moving forward, even if Trump is unseated. So I would love to hear your thoughts about the judiciary in particular.
The judiciary is the great tragedy of this entire 4 years, whether it's Amy Coney Barrett at the Supreme Court, or what's happened at circuit courts and federal courts all across this country for the last 4 years. They want to talk about court packing. That's what they've been doing at every level for the past 4 years, and we see the results of that in a case like the one you just mentioned. Conversion therapy is nothing more than state-sanctioned child abuse. It is an effort to convince LGBTQ kids that they're not LGBTQ, and we know that it has very dire consequences for those who go through it, including much more likelihood that they will attempt suicide. We've achieved a ban on conversion therapy in I think 28 states now. We need a national ban on conversion therapy, and thankfully Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have committed to that.
Oh wow, it gives me so much joy and makes me look forward to their administration even more. Thank you so much for joining us, Zeke. Can you tell the viewers where they can find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Zeke Stokes, and I'm there talking all the time, doing a lot of retweeting, listening a lot because I think that's important too, and chiming in when I have a little something to say.
Fantastic! I can dig that. Thanks so much, Zeke.
Thank you, Adrienne. Good to see you.
2 easy ways to follow Young Turks. One is hit the subscribe button down below. Then you're a TYT subscriber. And second is ring the bell. And when you do that on YouTube, you're notified of our videos.